So you want to create space for an amazing man. I have about 10 minutes. Let's talk about it. Now, my husband and I were out on a date night and we were having a wonderful time. And across the way in the restaurant, we saw a couple and I wasn't particularly watching them, but I noticed, randomly that they were having a good time, that she was a beautiful woman. He was a good looking man. And so I watch them as they get up from their table after their meal and they walk out of the restaurant. And what happens as I witness it is the woman stands up and she pushes her chair in and then she walks straight to the door of the restaurant. And the man follows her about 10 feet behind her. And she gets to the door, she opens the door, she walks outside, and he follows her out the restaurant. Now, this probably seems very normal, right? And maybe it is for them. And they didn't seem upset. There was nothing that felt off about it. But from my lens, I was thinking and reflecting on my journey into partnership, right? And the journey of healing and hiring mentors to support me as I transitioned out of a divorce in 2013, was single for 5 years, and then met my now husband. And what I was told by so many people on this journey was to create space for the man of your dreams, right? Go create space for him. And what I heard when they told me this was I heard, okay, make space in your closet for him, make space in your room for him, make space in your home for him. I really associated this idea with making space for him in my personal space. And there's a lot of validity to that, right? Bathroom drawer for him, making space in the kitchen for him, and to live as if, right? To live as if he's here already, he's going to show up. And that's really powerful manifestation practice. However, what I didn't hear and what I wasn't able to process at the time, which was probably now 10 years ago, 11 years ago, was I didn't process that this included making space for him in the world. And when I was out in the world, and what I also heard was make space for your man, when the reality is make space for healthy men, which is a big distinction. It's a big distinction. And I'm not going to invite every healthy man into my home. I'm not going to invite every man into my home, right? That wouldn't be wise. That's not what I was really intending to create. So it can get a little confusing when there's this idea of make space for him. So you make space for him in your home, but first you got to go meet him in the world, right? And how am I and how was I making space for healthy men to meet me in the world? And so I watched this interaction from a very neutral place. And I remembered, right? I like had this flashback moment to when I first started dating my husband and feeling this level of frustration because it was like I had this natural pace about my life and the way that I operated that was like this. It was very fast. It was I got it done, right? And that's what I was used to because I was used to being the woman who got it done, right? I was single for 5 years. I was independent. I had a son. I was a single mom. And that doesn't mean I was without support, but it meant that I was very much like focused, right? What needs to get done? We're on a timeline. This needs to be executed, right? I was responsible for everything. And a lot of us can find ourselves in that position where we are the one who is responsible for everything. And if we're responsible for everything, then everything falls to us. And so it's like, if it's me that needs to do it, then I will get it done. But when I met my husband, when I met my now husband and we were dating, what I noticed is that his pace was much different than mine. It was like a steady, slow, like this, right? It was a pace that was uncomfortable for me at first because in my mind, I'm like, why aren't we going? Why aren't we like this? Why aren't we going fast, 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 fast? Like, let's go. And it challenged me because what I realized in our interactions is that my husband wasn't saying you need to slow your pace down, right? That's not what he was saying. But what he was saying is you can trust my pace. I wonder if you could trust my pace. And what I learned as I began to settle and reflect on myself and go, why am I rushing? Why is there always this hum of pressure and anxiety? And why am I in my mind judging this man for the fact that his pace is different than mine, as if my pace is better. And what I've learned in the 7 years of being now with my husband is that his pace is the pace of a man who trusts the universe and trusts God and is knowing that there is no rush, right? His pace speeds up when it needs to speed up, but his steady pace of got this is a pace that is a different cadence. And it's not because he wants to move slow. It's because he trusts and he knows, I've got this. I've got this. And what that did for me when I gave myself permission to surrender to that pace was it allowed me to experience the chivalry that my husband operates with. And here's where the story ties back in. So what happens is I used to be that woman that meal is done. Okay, let me stand up. Let me get out the door. Let me, you know what I mean? On to the next thing, on to the next thing. And as I was operating that way, I would in my mind be like, why is he so far behind me? Why doesn't he open the door for me? Why doesn't he, you know? And the idea was like, well, chivalry is dead. And the epiphany for me was that actually I'm not the space for chivalry because chivalry is not dead. It's a different pace. It's not anxious. Chivalry is not anxious. Chivalry is not rushed. Chivalry is not pressured. It's this beautiful practice of honoring, right? It's an honoring practice. And so when I was able to let go of the pressure and the efficiency and the speed, and I relaxed into the pace of my husband, what I learned was that every door gets opened. Every walk is beautiful because he has the space to walk with me. Basically, what my husband was telling me without directly telling me this, he was embodying it, he was modeling it for me, was he was saying, Katie, it's safe to slow down. It's safe to slow down. It's safe to let me lead and not lead from an authoritative or controlling place, but lead from a place of creating an opportunity for you to move with peace, without pressure, without anxiety, without needing to be responsible for everything. And so what happens now is I'm no longer the woman that finishes eating and stands up immediately and walks out the door, you know, and opens her own door and then walks down the sidewalk a little ways by herself. I'm now the woman who sits and enjoys her meal and enjoys my husband and the conversations that we have, and we laugh and we have deeper conversations. And then when I'm done, I relax. I relax. And then when he stands up, I stand up. And then when he starts walking to the door, I walk with him. And then he opens the door for me and he makes sure I have all my things and he holds my hand and he walks me through the door. And then he holds my hand as we walk down the sidewalk into our next adventure. And that was such a beautiful awareness for me because I was hanging on to some residual ways of being that actually weren't necessary anymore. And when we talk about the soft life or, you know, the woman who is in her feminine, what we're talking about is a woman who's walking in confidence and in that trust that my husband embodied of God and the universe and the timing of things, and who does not hold all of the responsibilities, who is able to trust that there are other people in her world and in her life that are capable and want to share the responsibilities or even take on some responsibilities. And even if they do it in a different way, and even if they do it at a different pace, that doesn't make it less effective. Sometimes it actually makes it more effective. And what I was doing was I was fighting my own femininity as I was attaching myself to this pressure, to this stress, to this anxiety, to this responsibility that I thought had to be mine. And I eventually learned that it didn't have to be mine. It never had to be mine. And as I walk out into the world, not just with my husband, but as a woman who is now deeply in trust of life and God, I experience more of this from men. And I wish I could go back and tell myself 10 years ago, 11 years ago, that, you know, Katie, to meet a healthy man, it's important that you be the woman who creates space for healthy men in the world, which means that these healthy men are not pressured like that. They're not in a rush all the time because they have their time managed. They're not in an anxious place all the time because they trust themselves and they trust God and they're so generous. But if you're rushing, you're going to miss the moments of generosity. You're going to miss the moments of service. You're going to miss the opportunities to be truly taken care of and seen and adored, right? So, my encouragement to you is consider your pace. Consider if you are married to pressure and married to anxiety and married to responsibility. And if you are, then there's no space for a healthy marriage with a healthy man because he's not married to those things. He wants to be married to you. Something to think about. I love you. Have a great day.